The late 19th century scramble for Africa saw European powers scrambling to claim vast territories on the African continent. While Britain and France built extensive and long-lasting colonial empires, Germany's venture into imperialism was marked by a late entry, significant structural limitations, and brutal policies that ultimately led to a far more modest colonial footprint and a legacy of controversy. Before unification in 1871, the various German states were primarily concerned with internal affairs and European power dynamics. Under the leadership of Otto von Bismarck, whose primary achievements lay in unifying Germany and maintaining a balance of power on the continent, the German focus was not on overseas expansion. Bismarck's pragmatic approach even led him to disdain colonial ambitions, famously remarking, "I am no man for colonies." Nonetheless, increasing public pressure and the lure of international prestige eventually compelled Germany to enter the race for colonies, despite its late start compared to its European rivals. By the time Germany began acquiring territories in the 1880s, much of Africa had already been partitioned among other European powers. Initially, colonial pursuits in Germany were driven by enterprising merchants and adventurers rather than a coherent state policy. However, a significant shift occurred during the reign of Kaiser Wilhelm II, who embraced the aggressive Weltpolitik, a policy designed to secure Germany a place in the sun through expansive overseas ventures and a formidable navy. This policy marked a decisive break with Bismarck's Realpolitik and fueled ambitions that, by then, were already behind the more established colonial enterprises of Britain and France. Germany's delayed foray into colonialism brought with it inherent disadvantages. Unlike Britain and France, which had long established naval traditions and administrative structures for overseas governance, Germany had to build these capacities from scratch. Its colonial ventures were initially managed through chartered companies that struggled with the complexities of tropical agriculture and the logistics of long-distance governance. Economic constraints, limited experience in administering far-flung territories, and a lack of robust maritime infrastructure all contributed to a relatively modest and short-lived colonial presence. One of the most harrowing episodes of German colonial rule was the genocide committed against the Herero and Nama peoples in German Southwest Africa, modern-day Namibia. After the native Herero, pressured by land expropriation and forced confinement to reservations, rose in revolt in 1903, the German military responded with extraordinary brutality. In October 1904, General Lothar von Trotha issued orders to kill every male Herero and drive the women and children into the desert, a command that led to mass deaths by starvation, dehydration, and subsequent concentration camp internment. Over the course of just a few years, estimates suggest that tens of thousands of Herero and Nama people perished, marking this conflict as one of the first genocides of the 20th century. The extreme violence not only decimated indigenous populations, but also stained Germany's imperial legacy, contributing to long-term debates over racial policies and human rights that would later echo in the horrors of the Nazi era. By the time Germany attempted to stake its claim in Africa, Britain and France had already established extensive and contiguous colonial empires. Through decades of diplomatic negotiations, treaties, and a head start in building naval and administrative infrastructures, these powers secured the most economically and strategically valuable territories. The diplomatic delineations of borders during the Berlin Conference and subsequent agreements often left Germany with less desirable and more fragmented regions. This competitive disadvantage was compounded by Germany's late entry, as much of the good territory had already been claimed. World War I proved to be the final blow to Germany's colonial ambitions. With the outbreak of war in 1914, Allied forces quickly seized German colonies. Although a few isolated German military units held out, such as in German East Africa until the war's end, the overall collapse of the German colonial empire was swift and decisive. The Treaty of Versailles in 1919 formally stripped Germany of all its overseas possessions, redistributing them as League of Nations mandates under British and French supervision. This post-war settlement ensured that Germany would never again be a colonial power, cementing its limited role in Africa. Germany's brief and tumultuous colonial venture offers important lessons about the dynamics of imperial competition. Its late start, coupled with structural weaknesses and a reliance on brutal methods of control, meant that Germany's colonial empire was never as vast or enduring as those of Britain and France. The legacy of violence, most notably the Herero and Nama genocide, continues to provoke debate and demands for historical reckoning. Moreover, the failure to secure lasting colonial territories influenced German national identity, contributing to a historical narrative that remains cautious about overseas ambitions. In contrast, the extensive and lasting nature of British and French colonial holdings has left enduring imprints on the political, social, and economic landscapes of Africa. Germany's limited success in the scramble for Africa can be attributed to a confluence of factors: a delayed entry into the colonial race, structural and strategic limitations such as an underdeveloped navy, and administrative inexperience, fierce competition from more established colonial powers, and the devastating impact of its own brutal policies, epitomized by the Herero and Nama genocide. The swift seizure of its colonies during World War I and their subsequent redistribution sealed Germany's fate as a secondary player in African imperialism. Ultimately, Germany's experience in Africa reflects not only the competitive nature of European colonialism, but also the profound human costs of imperial ambition.